I'll be honest, this story still makes my stomach turn. When I found the second phone in my husband's truck, I thought I had found another woman. I was wrong. There was no lipstick selfie, no hotel reservation, no secret "I miss you" message waiting on that screen. What I found was my brother's name, then my aunt's, then my mother's. And beside each name was a dollar amount that made my hands go cold. At the top of the message thread, my husband had written one sentence I will never forget. "Don't tell Rachel until the papers are already filed." My name is Rachel, and at the time, I was 37 years old, living outside Nashville, married to a man named Grant Walker. Grant drove a black Ford F-150, wore clean work boots even on weekends, and had the kind of calm voice that made people trust him before he earned it. That was his gift. He made dangerous things sound reasonable. We had been married almost 6 years, and I honestly believed we were solid. Not perfect, but solid. We had a ranch-style house with a big front porch, 2 dogs, a shared Costco membership, and Sunday dinners with my family twice a month. Grant worked in construction management. I worked as an office administrator for a dental practice. We were not rich, but we were careful. Or at least, I thought we were. Money had been tighter that spring. Grant blamed rising costs, delayed client payments, gas prices, everything people complain about when life gets expensive. He started checking our bank app more often. He started taking calls outside. He started using phrases like temporary cash flow problem and short-term bridge loan. I did not like those words, but I trusted him. That was my mistake. The phone showed up on a Thursday evening right after a thunderstorm rolled through town. Grant had asked me to grab his rain jacket from the truck because he was already in the shower. I went outside barefoot, annoyed but smiling because marriage is full of small stupid errands you do without thinking. His truck smelled like wet leather, sawdust, and the peppermint gum he kept in the cup holder. I reached behind the driver's seat and pulled up the jacket. That was when something slid out of the pocket. A phone. Not his regular phone. This one was older, black, cheap-looking, with a cracked screen protector and no case. It landed face down on the floor mat, buzzing once like it had been waiting for me. I picked it up. The screen lit up. No passcode. That alone should have scared me. People hide phones with passcodes. This one felt different. It felt like a tool. A message preview sat on the lock screen from someone saved as Ray T. "Your wife's cousin is asking questions. Handle it tonight." For a moment, I could not move. My first thought was cheating, because that is where every woman's mind goes when she finds a secret phone. My second thought was that Ray might be a contractor. My third thought was my cousin Megan, who had called me 2 weeks earlier sounding strange. She had asked if Grant was still doing real estate stuff. I had laughed because Grant did not do real estate stuff. He builds office remodels, I told her. Megan had gone quiet. Then she said, "Never mind." I probably misunderstood. That memory came back so sharply I almost dropped the phone. I climbed into the truck and shut the door. Rain tapped the windshield. The porch light flickered across the dashboard. Inside the house, Grant was humming in the shower like nothing in the world was wrong. I opened the messages. There were no hearts, no flirty names, no hidden photos, just conversations about money, signatures, property addresses, and people I loved. My brother, Luke, had apparently borrowed $15,000. My Aunt Teresa had signed something connected to a duplex in Murfreesboro. My mother's name appeared beside a line that said equity release pending. I stared at that phrase until it stopped making sense. My mother lived in a small paid-off house my father left her after he died. She guarded that house like it was a living thing. She would never risk it for some investment deal, and she definitely would not do it without telling me. I kept scrolling. Every few messages, Grant's name appeared. Not as Grant. As G.W. He had been using initials, like that somehow made it less real. Then I saw a photo attachment. It was a document. A loan application. My heart started beating so hard I could hear it. The borrower name was my mother's. The contact email was not hers. The phone number was Grant's second phone. And near the bottom, under authorization, was a signature that looked almost exactly like mine. I whispered no, not loudly. just enough for the truck to hear me. The shower shut off inside the house. I locked the phone, shoved it into my sweatshirt pocket, and climbed out of the truck with his rain jacket in my hand. My legs felt strange, like they belonged to someone walking across ice. When I stepped inside, Grant was coming down the hallway in sweatpants, drying his hair with a towel. He smiled when he saw me. A normal husband smile. The kind that used to make me feel safe. "Find it?" he asked. I held up the jacket. "Yeah." He walked toward me and kissed my forehead. I stood perfectly still. His lips felt like a lie. Then his eyes dropped to my sweatshirt pocket. Just for 1 second. But I saw it. His face did not change much. Grant was too careful for that. Still, something behind his eyes tightened, like a locked door had just rattled. "You okay?" he asked. I forced myself to nod. "Just tired." He studied me a little too long. Then he smiled again. "Go sit down. I'll make tea." That was Grant's specialty. Kindness at exactly the wrong moment. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and pulled out the second phone. My hands were shaking now, but I kept scrolling, searching for anything that explained why my family's names were inside my husband's secret life. Then I found a group chat. Only 3 people were in it. Grant, Ray T, and someone saved as Notary Linda. The most recent message had been sent that afternoon. "Rachel's signature is clean. File transfer Friday morning." Friday morning. That was tomorrow. Before I could breathe, a new message appeared on the screen. From Ray. "Your wife has the phone." I stared at that message in the bathroom until my fingers went numb. Your wife has the phone. Not does she have it? Not maybe she found it. Ray knew. Somehow, from somewhere, Ray knew I was holding that phone. I looked at the locked bathroom door, then at the small window above the tub, as if someone might be standing outside in the rain watching my hands shake. The house was quiet except for Grant moving around in the kitchen, opening cabinets, filling the kettle, making tea like he had not just been exposed inside a second phone. Then another message came in. "Don't panic. Keep her calm. Linda says the filing window closes at 10. I read the words twice. Filing window. Friday morning. My signature. My mother's house. Suddenly, this did not feel like something I had discovered too early. It felt like something I had interrupted. A knock came at the bathroom door. "Rachel," Grant said softly. "You okay in there?" His voice was gentle. That made it worse, because now I could hear the performance inside it. I shoved the phone into the drawer under the sink, beneath a stack of hand towels, then splashed water on my face. When I opened the door, Grant was standing there holding 2 mugs. Chamomile tea, my favorite when I was anxious. That small detail almost made me sick. "You've been quiet," he said. I took the mug, but I did not drink. "I told you. I'm tired." Grant looked over my shoulder into the bathroom. Just a quick glance. But I saw it. His eyes moved to the sink, the drawer, the towels. He knew the phone was close. "Maybe you should go to bed early," he said. "Big day tomorrow." I froze. What's tomorrow? His smile stayed in place, but his eyes sharpened. "Friday," he said. "You always say Fridays are crazy at the office." I nodded slowly. Right. For the next hour, I played the role of a tired wife. I sat on the couch. I let him talk about work. I answered just enough to seem normal. Every few minutes, Grant glanced toward the hallway bathroom, and every time he did, my heart kicked against my ribs. At 10:30, he said he was going to take the dogs out. The moment the back door closed, I ran. I grabbed the phone from the bathroom drawer, took pictures of every message with my own phone, then emailed the screenshots to an old Gmail account Grant did not know about. My hands moved fast, but my brain felt split in two. One part of me was terrified. The other part was counting evidence. Messages. Names. Amounts. Documents. Friday filing. Notary Linda. Then I saw a folder labeled closings. Inside were photos of driver's licenses. My brother's. My aunt's. My mother's. And mine. I did not remember giving Grant a copy of my license recently. Then I realized I had. 3 months earlier, he said our insurance agent needed it to update our homeowner's policy. I had texted him a photo while standing in the break room at work, eating yogurt and worrying about nothing. He had saved it for this. I clicked on the newest file. It was a purchase agreement for a small rental property near Antioch. Buyer, an LLC called Cedar Ridge Holdings. Managing member, Grant Walker. Personal guarantor, Rachel Walker. My vision blurred. I had never heard of Cedar Ridge Holdings. I had never agreed to guarantee anything. And yet there was my name, typed neatly into a legal document that could ruin my credit, my savings, and maybe my mother's home. The back door opened. I nearly dropped the phone. Grant called from the kitchen. Dogs are soaked. You want a towel? I locked the screen and pushed the phone under a couch cushion. No, I'm good. He came into the living room with our golden retriever trailing behind him, wet and happy. Grant stood there looking down at me, and for a second I thought he might accuse me. I thought he might reach under the cushion, pull out the phone, and stop pretending. Instead, he smiled. You sure you're okay? That question had become a trap. So I looked him straight in the face and lied back. Yeah, I'm okay. He leaned down and kissed me. This time, I did not freeze. I kissed him back because I needed him to believe me. That night, I barely slept. Grant did. Or at least, he pretended to. At 2:17 a.m., I heard his breathing change. I kept my eyes closed while he slowly got out of bed and walked down the hall. A minute later, the bathroom drawer opened. Then closed. Then silence. When he came back, he stood beside the bed for a long time. I could feel him looking at me. I did not move. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm and drove to work like normal. But instead of turning into the dental office parking lot, I kept driving until I reached my mother's house. Her car was in the driveway. Thank God. She opened the door in her robe, holding coffee, smiling until she saw my face. Rachel, honey, what happened? I stepped inside and locked the door behind me. Mom, I said, my voice barely working. Did you sign anything for Grant? Her smile disappeared. What do you mean? Anything about your house? A loan? A rental property? Equity release. The color drained from her face. She set the coffee down very carefully. Then she said, Grant told me not to tell you yet. My stomach dropped. What did he tell you? My mother looked ashamed before she even answered. He said you two were in trouble, she whispered. He said you were hiding debt from him, and that helping him with one short-term document might keep you from losing everything. I grabbed the edge of the table. The room tilted. Grant had not just used my family. He had turned them against my judgment before I even knew there was a fight. Then my mother reached into a kitchen drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope. I wasn't supposed to open this until noon, she said. My name was written across the front, in Grant's handwriting. Inside was a single notarized document. At the top, it said, Spousal consent to transfer property interest. I stared at the words on that document until my mother's kitchen disappeared around me. Spousal consent to transfer property interest. It sounded official, boring, almost harmless. That is how dangerous paperwork usually looks. No screaming. No blood. No dramatic warning printed in red. Just clean black letters on white paper, sitting on my mother's kitchen table, pretending it could not destroy a life. My mother stood across from me in her robe, both hands wrapped around herself, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. This was the same woman who raised 2 kids after my father's heart attack, argued medical bills down over the phone, and once replaced her own kitchen faucet after watching one video online. But now she looked ashamed. And shame was exactly what Grant had counted on. Mom, I said carefully, where did you get this? She looked toward the front window before answering, like Grant might be parked outside watching us. He brought it yesterday, she whispered. He said it was only a formality. My throat tightened. What else did he say? She pressed her lips together, and I could see her fighting tears. He said you were embarrassed. He said you had signed some investment paperwork without understanding the risk, and now there was a deadline. He told me if I helped quietly, he could fix it before you found out how bad it was. I had to grip the back of a chair to stay standing, because that was Grant's true talent. He did not just lie. He built a lie that made the other person feel noble for helping him. My mother reached for my hand. Rachel, I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you. I wanted to tell her it was fine, but it was not fine. Fine was the word women used when they were trying not to collapse. So I just squeezed her fingers and forced myself to breathe. Did you sign anything? Her face crumpled. One paper, she whispered. At the bank. He said it let him talk to the lender because you were too upset. My stomach went cold again. What bank? Volunteer State Credit Union, she said. The branch near the Kroger. I knew that branch. Grant had taken me there once to notarize a car title. A woman named Linda worked behind the glass office near the back. Notary Linda. Suddenly, the name on the secret phone had a face. I opened the envelope wider and pulled out the rest of the pages. My signature was on the second page, above a notary stamp dated the previous afternoon. I had been at work the previous afternoon. At 2:30, the time listed beside the notary stamp, I had been checking in a little boy for a dental cleaning while his mother argued about insurance coverage. I could prove it. That thought gave me one small piece of ground under my feet. Then I saw the property address near the bottom of the form. It was not my mother's house. It was mine and Grant's. Our ranch house. The one with the porch swing. The one where I had planted hydrangeas because my father used to call them old lady flowers, and I missed hearing him tease my mother. I read the paragraph again, slower this time. The document said I consented to Grant transferring any marital interest connected to our home, related collateral, and associated proceeds into Cedar Ridge Holdings for investment restructuring. Investment restructuring. Associated proceeds. Marital interest. The words blurred together, but the meaning finally came through. Grant was not only pulling my family into a fake real estate deal. He was moving our home into his LLC. Or trying to. And my forged signature was the key. My mother covered her mouth. Rachel, what does that mean? I don't know yet, I said. But I knew enough. I knew my husband had created a company without telling me. I knew he had put my name on a personal guarantee. I knew he had used my mother's fear, my brother's trust, and my aunt's paperwork to build something around me while I slept beside him every night. And I knew whatever was supposed to happen at 10 o'clock. We had less than 2 hours to stop it. I took photos of every page, then called my brother Luke. He answered on the fourth ring, sounding rushed. Rach, I can't talk right now. Did Grant give you money? I asked. The silence was immediate. Not confused silence. Guilty silence. My mother closed her eyes. Luke lowered his voice. Who told you? Grant's second phone told me. He cursed under his breath. It wasn't like that, he said. He said it was a private bridge loan. He said you knew but didn't want Mom worried. How much? Another pause. 15,000. I shut my eyes. Luke, where did the money come from? He wired it from some business account, Luke said. Cedar something. Cedar Ridge Holdings. My husband had used an LLC I did not know existed to lend money to my brother, then tied my name to the risk. Did you sign anything? I asked. Just a repayment agreement. Send it to me right now. Rachel, what's going on? I looked at my mother's pale face, the notarized document, and the clock above the stove. 9:04 a.m. Grant is filing something this morning, I said. And my signature is on it. Luke went quiet. Then his voice changed. I'll send everything. After I hung up, I called my Aunt Teresa. She answered crying. That told me enough before she said a word. Grant had told her I was in trouble too. He told her the duplex was a family opportunity. He said I had approved everything but wanted to avoid drama until the documents cleared. She signed because Grant made her feel like refusing would be abandoning me. By 9:22, my phone was filling with files. Loan papers. Repayment agreements. A duplex contract. Screenshots of wire confirmations. All roads led back to Cedar Ridge Holdings. All roads led back to Grant. At 9:31, the second phone buzzed again in my purse. I had forgotten I still had it until the sound made my whole body jolt. My mother whispered, "Is that him?" I looked down. A new message from Ray. She went to her mother's. "You need to move now." My blood went cold. My mother and I both looked toward the front window. A dark SUV slowed in front of the house, then kept rolling. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was everything. Then another message appeared. This one was from Grant. Linda is ready. If Rachel calls, do not answer. File it anyway. I grabbed my keys. My mother said, "Where are you going?" "To the credit union." She reached for her coat. "I'm coming." We drove in silence, with the second phone between us like a loaded weapon. At 9:48, we pulled into the credit union parking lot. Grant's black truck was already there. So was the dark SUV. I sat in my mother's car staring at Grant's black truck. For a few seconds, I could not make myself open the door. The credit union looked completely ordinary in the morning light. People were walking in with coffee cups, debit cards, toddlers, envelopes, all the normal pieces of normal lives. Nobody outside knew that my husband was inside with a forged signature, trying to move property through a company I had never heard of. My mother reached across the console and touched my arm. "Rachel," she said quietly, "we go in together." That gave me enough strength to move. The second we stepped inside, I saw Grant. He was behind the glass wall of Linda's office, sitting in one of the chairs with his elbows on his knees. A man I did not recognize stood near the window, heavy-set, gray jacket, shaved head, phone in hand. "Ray." I knew it before anyone said his name. Grant looked up and saw me through the glass. For one tiny moment, his face went completely blank. Then he became my husband again. Concerned. Calm. Almost loving. He stood so fast his chair bumped the wall, then came out of the office with both hands raised slightly, like I was a frightened animal he needed to soothe. "Rachel," he said softly. "Honey, what are you doing here?" I hated that word then. Honey. Like we were arguing about a grocery receipt, not my forged signature. My mother stepped beside me. "We need to speak to a manager," she said. Grant looked at her, and his warmth disappeared just enough for me to see what lived under it. "Marilyn, I really wish you hadn't brought her here." My mother stiffened. He turned back to me. "Ratch, you're overwhelmed. You found pieces of something you don't understand, and now you're scaring your mom." I stared at him. It was happening right in front of me. The same story he had told everyone else was now being performed to my face. Overwhelmed Rachel. Confused Rachel. Emotional Rachel. A woman too unstable to understand her own name on a document. "I understand enough," I said. "I know you forged my signature." Linda appeared in the office doorway behind him. She was in her 50s, with stiff blonde hair, a silver cross necklace, and the kind of tight smile people use when they are already choosing a side. "Mrs. Walker," she said, "maybe we should discuss this privately." "No," I said. "We discuss it with a manager." Grant's jaw flexed. Ray stepped out next, slower than Grant, studying me like I was a problem on a spreadsheet. He did not look embarrassed. He did not look surprised. He looked annoyed that I had shown up before the machine finished running. "You must be Rachel," he said. I did not answer him. My mother did. "And you must be the man texting my son-in-law about my daughter." Ray's eyes flicked to Grant. That was when I realized Grant had not told him I still had the second phone. Not completely. Not enough. I pulled it from my purse and held it up. Grant's face drained of color. Linda whispered, "Oh no." Those two words told me more than any confession. A teller noticed the tension and disappeared through a side door. Less than a minute later, a branch manager came out, a woman named Denise according to her badge. She looked careful, professional, and very aware that something dangerous had just entered her lobby. "How can I help?" she asked. I placed the envelope on her desk with both hands because they were shaking too badly to use one. "My signature was notarized here yesterday," I said. "I was at work when it happened." Grant stepped forward. "Denise, my wife is having a very stressful morning." The manager did not look away from me. "Mrs. Walker, do you have identification?" I handed over my license, then opened my phone and showed her my work time log. I showed her screenshots from the dental office system, including the appointment I checked in at 2:30. Then I showed her the notarized form. Denise read it. Then she read it again. Her expression changed very slightly. Not enough for Grant to notice, maybe. But I noticed. She looked up at Linda. "Was this notarized here?" Linda swallowed. I followed standard procedure. "That is not what I asked." Grant's voice hardened. "Everyone needs to slow down." "No," I said, turning to him. "You needed me to slow down." That was the whole point. Ray laughed under his breath. It was small, but I heard it. Something in me snapped into focus. I looked at him. What exactly were you filing this morning? Grant answered before Ray could. Nothing final. Ray gave him a sharp look. My mother saw it too. Denise asked for the file number, and Linda hesitated before typing it into her computer. For a moment, the only sound was the keyboard and the low hum of printers behind the teller line. Then Denise's screen loaded. Her face went still. She clicked once, then again. Then she looked at me with a kind of quiet pity that made my stomach drop. Mrs. Walker, she said, this is not just one document. Grant said, Denise. She ignored him. There is a limited power of attorney attached to the file. I blinked. A what? A document giving your husband authority to sign certain financial and property-related documents on your behalf. The room tilted. My mother grabbed my hand. I heard myself say, I never signed that. Denise looked at Linda again. Linda's eyes were wet now. Grant stepped toward the desk, his voice low and dangerous. Print nothing. Denise finally looked at him. Mr. Walker, you do not give instructions here. That was the first moment I felt the ground shift. Not enough to save me, but enough to show me I was not imagining the danger. Denise printed the file. Page after page came out of the machine behind her. My name, my mother's property, our house, Cedar Ridge Holdings, Grant's signature, my fake signature, a notary stamp, a wiring instruction sheet, and then one page that made the blood leave my face. It was an affidavit, signed by Grant, notarized by Linda. It said I had been hiding financial instability from my family, making irrational decisions, and refusing to cooperate with emergency restructuring to protect marital assets. I read that sentence 3 times. Then I whispered, this is just insane. Because suddenly I understood the shape of the trap. Grant was not only moving money, he was building a record. If I fought him, I would look reckless. If I warned my family, I would look unstable. If I claimed fraud, he already had documents saying I was confused, emotional, and financially irresponsible. He had not just forged my name. He had prepared a version of me that nobody would believe. Then Denise turned one more page over. Her face changed again. This time, even Ray stopped moving. What? I asked. She looked at Grant first, then at me. There is a closing scheduled today at 11:30, she said, for the transfer of your marital home into Cedar Ridge Holdings. I could barely breathe. Grant looked at the floor. Ray put his phone into his pocket. Then my mother pointed at the final page. Rachel, she whispered. Look at the buyer. I looked down. The managing member of Cedar Ridge Holdings was Grant. But the beneficiary listed beneath the LLC was not Grant. It was my Aunt Teresa's son, my cousin Megan's husband, the man who had warned Ray that I was asking questions. I stared at that name until the room seemed to lose sound. Tyler Vaughn. Technically, he was my Aunt Teresa's son-in-law, my cousin Megan's husband. The same Tyler who sold insurance, coached Little League, brought smoked brisket to family cookouts, and called every older woman ma'am like manners could make him honest. For a moment, my brain refused to accept it. Grant was bad enough. Ray was bad enough. Linda sitting there with wet eyes and a notary stamp was bad enough. But Tyler meant this had reached all the way into my family. Megan had not been asking strange questions because she was nosy. She had been close to the edge of the truth. And maybe she had been living beside it too. I looked at Grant, waiting for him to explain why my cousin's husband was listed as a beneficiary under the LLC that was about to receive my home. He did not look surprised. That told me everything. My mother whispered, why is Tyler's name on this? Grant's face tightened, but Ray stepped in before he could answer. Because Tyler brought the deal, Ray said, like that should make sense to anyone with a pulse. He had access to the seller network. The seller network? I repeated. Ray looked annoyed. Distressed owners. Family properties. People who need liquidity fast. My mother's hand went cold in mine. Distressed owners. That was how he described us. Not family. Not people. Inventory. Denise, the branch manager, picked up the document and said, I am placing an immediate hold on this file. Linda made a small sound behind her. Grant's eyes snapped toward Denise. You can't do that. Denise looked at him calmly. I can and I am. For the first time that morning, Grant lost control of his face. The mask did not fall completely, but it cracked enough for me to see panic underneath. His eyes moved from Denise to Ray, then to the lobby doors, as if he was calculating how much time he had before this became bigger than he could talk his way out of. Ray leaned toward him and muttered, "This is why I told you not to bring family into it." I laughed once. I could not help it. You told him not to bring family into stealing from family? Ray looked at me with flat eyes. Careful what words you use. My mother stepped forward so fast, I barely caught her arm. No, she said. You be careful. That is my daughter. Something about hearing my mother say that in a bank lobby, while holding documents that almost cost me my house, nearly broke me. But I did not cry. Not there. Not with Grant watching for weakness. Denise asked me to come into a private office, and this time I agreed, but only with my mother beside me. Grant tried to follow us, and Denise stopped him with one sentence. Mr. Walker, you are not authorized to join this conversation. The look he gave me then was not love. It was ownership being challenged. Inside the office, Denise called the credit union's fraud department while I forwarded her the screenshots from the second phone. She read the messages in silence, her professional calm slowly hardening into something heavier. When she saw the line about filing, even if I called, she closed her eyes for 1 second. Then she said, Mrs. Walker, I strongly recommend you contact an attorney and file a police report today. My mother sat straighter. Today? Denise looked at me, not at her. Yes, today. That was when the fear changed shape. Until then, part of me still thought this was a marriage disaster. A betrayal. A financial nightmare. Something painful but private. But when a bank manager tells you to call the police, your life moves into a different category. I called Megan from the parking lot. She answered immediately, breathless. Rachel? I did not ease into it. Why is Tyler's name on Cedar Ridge Holdings? There was silence. Then I heard a door close on her end. When she spoke again, her voice was a whisper. You found it. My stomach dropped. You knew? No, she said quickly. Not everything. I swear. I found a folder on Tyler's laptop last week. Your name was in it. Aunt Teresa's too. I asked him what it was, and he said Grant was helping you refinance quietly. I looked across the parking lot. Grant was standing near his truck, talking hard into his phone while Ray paced beside the SUV. What else was in the folder? Megan started crying. Addresses. Family names. Appraisal estimates. Notes about who owned property outright. There was a list called warm leads. Warm leads. My mother covered her mouth when I repeated it. Megan's voice broke. Rachel, Mom's duplex was on there. Your mom's house was on there. Your house was marked priority. Priority. Not because it was worth the most. Because Grant had access to me. Because I was his wife. Because I had trusted him with mail, passwords, insurance papers, and the rhythm of my life. Then Megan said something that made me stop breathing. There was another file too. What file? She hesitated. It was called Rachel Contingency. The parking lot seemed to tilt. What was in it? I didn't open it, she whispered. Tyler came in and I panicked. But Rachel, he moved it to a flash drive this morning. I looked toward Grant again. He was staring straight at me now, and in his hand, hanging from his keychain, was a small silver flash drive. I looked at the silver flash drive on Grant's keychain, and everything inside me went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, danger quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when your body understands something before your mind catches up. Grant was still across the parking lot, phone pressed to his ear, eyes fixed on me like I had become a problem he needed to solve quickly. Ray stood beside him, tense and irritated, while Linda watched from just inside the credit union doors with her hand over her mouth. Megan was still crying in my ear. Rachel, she whispered, you need to get away from him. I almost laughed because I was finally understanding the ugliest part. I had been sleeping beside him for 6 years. I had been making dinner with him, sharing bills with him, kissing him goodbye, sending him pictures of my driver's license, and telling him where my mother kept her important papers. Getting away from him was not one decision. It was going to be a fight. My mother touched my arm. "What did Megan say?" I lowered the phone and kept my voice steady. "There's a file called Rachel Contingency. Tyler moved it to a flash drive this morning." My mother followed my eyes across the parking lot. When she saw the flash drive hanging from Grant's keys, her face changed. For the first time all day, she looked truly afraid. Grant ended his call and started walking toward us. Slowly, like a man approaching a frightened dog. "Rachel," he called out. "We need to go home and talk." I stood beside my mother's car and did not move. "There is nothing at home I need to hear." His smile was thin now. "You don't want to do this in public." That sentence almost made me laugh again. Because men like Grant love privacy when truth finally arrives. They want closed doors, lowered voices, no witnesses, no cameras, no mothers standing nearby, no bank managers, no paper trail. They want the world narrowed back down to you and them, where they can turn your fear into doubt. I unlocked my car instead. Grant's face tightened. "Where are you going?" "To the police." Ray swore under his breath. That tiny reaction told me the word had landed exactly where it needed to. Grant stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You file a report, and you destroy both of us." "No," I said. "You already tried to destroy me." His eyes flicked to my mother. Then his tone softened, like he had just remembered which mask worked best on women who loved him. "Marilyn," he said, "please help me here. She's scared, and she's not thinking clearly." My mother opened the passenger door. "She's thinking clearly for the first time in weeks." Grant looked at her like she had betrayed him. That was when I realized how deeply he had expected everyone to choose the story he had written. He thought my mother's guilt would keep her quiet. He thought Luke's loan would make him ashamed. He thought Aunt Teresa's fear would make her cooperative. He thought Megan's marriage would keep her trapped beside Tyler. And he thought I would protect our marriage image longer than I protected myself. I got into the driver's seat. Before I could close the door, Grant grabbed the top of it. Not violently, just enough to stop me. That was always his way. Never enough for bruises. Always enough for control. "Give me the phone," he said. My mother stepped around the car. "Let go of the door." Grant ignored her. His eyes stayed on mine. "That second phone is company property." I looked at him through the open door. "Whose company, Grant? Yours or Tyler's?" For 1 second, his face cracked. There it was. A flicker of pure anger. Then he leaned closer and whispered something only I could hear. "You have no idea what Tyler has on you." My blood went cold. Not because I believed there was something real. Because I suddenly understood the purpose of the contingency file. It did not have to be true. It only had to be ugly enough to scare me. I pulled the door hard. He let go at the last second, and I drove away with my mother beside me, my hands locked around the steering wheel. In the rearview mirror, Grant stood in the parking lot watching us leave, while Ray paced like everything was slipping out of order. We did not go home. We drove straight to the police station. I expected the officer at the front desk to treat it like a messy marriage fight, because that is what people do when betrayal comes with wedding rings and bank accounts. But when I laid out the documents, the forged signature, the notary stamp, the second phone, and the messages about filing without my consent, his expression changed. He called a detective. Her name was Detective Harris. She had tired eyes, gray-streaked hair, and the kind of calm voice that made me feel like she had seen worse and would not be shocked by mine. I told her everything. Grant's second phone. Cedar Ridge Holdings. My mother's paperwork. Luke's loan. Aunt Teresa's duplex. Tyler. Ray. Linda. The fake affidavit calling me unstable. The closing scheduled for our house. When I said Rachel Contingency, Detective Harris looked up from her notes. "Who is that file?" "My husband," I said. "On a flash drive." She tapped her pen once against the table. "Do you know what might be in it?" "No." That answer was the scariest one I had. Detective Harris leaned back slightly. "Mrs. Walker, people build contingency files for leverage. Sometimes it's financial. Sometimes it's personal. Sometimes it's fabricated." Fabricated. That word did something strange to me. It made me breathe. Because until then, A dark little part of my mind had been searching for mistakes. Old texts, angry emails, bad days. Every moment Grant could twist into proof that I was unstable. But the detective did not look at me like a woman falling apart. She looked at me like a target. And somehow that felt better. My mother gave a statement too. Then Luke sent his agreement. Megan emailed screenshots from Tyler's laptop, including the warm leads list before he had moved the file. Aunt Teresa called sobbing from her car outside the duplex and promised she would bring every paper she had signed. By late afternoon, my whole family knew. Not the cleaned-up version. The real one. Grant had tried to turn my family into silent pieces of his scheme, but once the truth broke open, everyone started talking at once. That was how we found the pattern. Grant had not started with me. He had started with smaller favors. A loan to my brother. A bridge document for my aunt. A quiet refinance question for my mother. Each lie made the next one easier because every person thought they were protecting someone else. That was the part that made me sickest. He had used love as the wiring. At 5:46 p.m., Detective Harris stepped back into the interview room with her phone in her hand. "We reached Tyler Vaughn," she said. My stomach tightened. "And?" "He says Grant has the only copy of the contingency file." My mother closed her eyes. Detective Harris looked directly at me. "But he also says Grant was supposed to email it to your employer tomorrow morning if you interfered with the closing." For a moment, I could not speak. My employer, the dental office, my paycheck, my health insurance, my last normal piece of life. What was in it? I whispered. Detective Harris hesitated. That hesitation was worse than the answer. Then she said, "Allegations of prescription theft, supported by edited security screenshots from your workplace." The room tilted. I had access to patient medication logs at work. Grant knew that. He knew because I had complained about office inventory audits at dinner. He had been listening. Not as a husband. As a man collecting weapons. Before I could even process it, my phone buzzed on the table. A text from Grant. "Come home by 8, or your boss gets the file." I stared at Grant's text until the letters seemed to crawl. "Come home by 8, or your boss gets the file." For 6 years, that man had slept beside me with his hand on my waist. He knew how I took my coffee. He knew which side of my jaw hurt when I was stressed. He knew I worried too much about disappointing people. And now he was using every soft place I had ever shown him. My mother read the message over my shoulder and whispered, "Rachel, no." Detective Harris reached for the phone, but she did not take it from me. She just looked at the screen, then at my face. "Do not go home alone," she said. "I can't let him send that to my boss. He is counting on that fear." I knew she was right. That did not make the fear smaller. My job was the last piece of my life that still felt untouched. The dental office was not glamorous, but it was steady. I had worked there 8 years. I knew the patients, the insurance codes, the supply schedule, the sound the front printer made before it jammed. Grant knew all of that too. He knew losing that job would make me look exactly like the woman in his fake affidavit. Unstable, desperate, financially reckless. Detective Harris leaned forward. "Call your employer before he does." My throat tightened. "You want me to tell my boss my husband may accuse me of stealing prescriptions?" "I want you to get ahead of a lie," she said. "Silence gives him the first version." That sentence stayed with me. Silence gives them the first version. So I called my boss, Dr. Elaine Mercer, from the interview room. My finger hovered over her name for almost 10 seconds before I tapped it. She answered on the second ring, cheerful and distracted, probably between patients. "Rachel? Everything okay?" I almost said yes. The habit was right there. But I swallowed it. "No," I said. "Something is very wrong, and I need to tell you before someone else does." There was a pause. Then her voice changed. "Are you safe?" I nearly cried just hearing that question. Not "what did you do?" Not "what's going on now?" "Are you safe?" I told her enough. Not everything. Just that my husband was being investigated for financial fraud, that he had threatened to send false allegations about me, and that the accusations might involve edited security screenshots from the office. Dr. Mercer went silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Rachel, you have never had access to controlled medication without two-person logging." I closed my eyes. I know. And all medication storage areas have time-stamped camera records. I know. And Grant doesn't know how our system works. For the first time that day, I felt my lungs open. No, I whispered. He doesn't. Her voice became firm. Send me nothing from him. Forward any threat to the detective. I'll call our compliance attorney now. After we hung up, I put my face in my hands. I was not crying because everything was fixed. Nothing was fixed. But one door Grant planned to use against me had not opened the way he thought it would. At 6:40 p.m., Detective Harris walked us to a smaller conference room. Luke was already there, red-eyed and furious, holding a folder of repayment paperwork. Aunt Teresa arrived 15 minutes later, shaking so badly my mother had to guide her into a chair. Then Megan came in. She looked like she had aged 10 years in one afternoon. Her wedding ring was gone. She placed a flash drive on the table. I copied what I could before Tyler came home, she said. Detective Harris took it carefully. Megan looked at me, tears filling her eyes. I'm sorry. I should have opened the Rachel folder when I first saw your name. I wanted to be angry. Part of me was. But looking at her, I saw the same thing I had seen in my mother and my aunt. Grant and Tyler had not only built a financial trap, they had built it out of shame. Everyone had been too embarrassed, too afraid, or too loyal to compare stories. And that was how the whole thing survived. Detective Harris plugged the drive into a department laptop that was not connected to the main network. A tech officer stood beside her. Nobody spoke while the files loaded. There were folders named after family members. Marilyn, Teresa, Luke, Megan, Rachel. My folder was the largest. Inside were scanned checks, copies of my license, pieces of old text taken out of context, screenshots of my work schedule, and notes in Grant's writing. Emotional under pressure. Afraid of public embarrassment. Will protect mother first. Likely to comply if job threatened. I read those lines and felt something colder than heartbreak. This was not a man who snapped. This was not a mistake. This was a study. Grant had studied my love and turned it into leverage. Then the tech officer opened a subfolder called Final Step. Inside was one PDF. The file name was simple. Emergency Petition, R. Walker. Detective Harris opened it. At first, I saw the county court heading. Then my name. Then Grant's. Then paragraph after paragraph claiming I was mentally unstable, financially impulsive, paranoid, and unable to protect marital assets from harm. My mother gasped behind me. Luke swore under his breath. I kept reading, even though every sentence felt like being buried alive. Grant had attached the fake affidavit. The forged power of attorney. The suspicious property transfer. Even selected texts where I had said things like, I can't take this anymore, after ordinary, stressful workdays. He had built a paper version of me that looked broken. And then I saw the request at the bottom. Grant was not just trying to move our home. He was asking the court for emergency temporary authority over my finances, property decisions, and medical evaluation. My husband had not planned to divorce me. He had planned to legally silence me. Before anyone could speak, my phone buzzed again. This time, the message was not from Grant. It was from an unknown number. Mrs. Walker, this is Judge Calloway's clerk. Your emergency hearing is scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. I read that message 3 times before I understood it. Your emergency hearing is scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Not next week. Not after an investigation. Tomorrow. Grant had not been waiting to see whether I would expose him. He had already filed the story where I was broken, dangerous, confused, and unfit to control my own life. My mother sat beside me at the police station, staring at my phone like it was a death notice. Luke stood behind my chair with both hands on his head. Megan started crying again, quietly this time, like she was afraid any sound might make the room worse. Detective Harris looked at the message and said, "He moved faster than most people do." That sentence scared me because it did not sound surprised. It sounded experienced. By 8 that night, I had an attorney. Dr. Mercer's compliance lawyer called a family attorney named Maya Collins, who answered from her daughter's soccer game and told me not to sleep before sending her every document. So we worked. All night. Screenshots. Bank files. The second phone messages. The forged power of attorney. The fake affidavit. The text threatening my job. Megan's flash drive. My work records proving I was not at the credit union when Linda claimed she notarized my signature. At 2:11 a.m., Denise from the credit union sent the document that changed everything. It was the internal closing sheet for Cedar Ridge Holdings. One page. Plain. Boring. Deadly. It showed exactly where the money would go after our marital home transferred. Grant was taking $92,000 as a management draw. Ray was taking $40,000 as a consulting recovery fee. Tyler was taking $25,000 for lead acquisition. And Linda, the notary, was listed under processing incentive. Notary Linda had not just made a mistake. She had been paid. I remember sitting there in my mother's kitchen, looking at that sheet while the sun started turning the windows gray. My marriage was gone. But for the first time, the lie had a shape other people could see. The courtroom was small and cold. Grant arrived in a navy suit, clean-shaven, holding a folder like a worried husband who had barely slept because he cared so much. He looked at me with sad eyes. That used to work on me. Now I only saw a man checking whether his mask still fit. When the judge entered, Grant's attorney spoke first. He described me as distressed, overwhelmed, paranoid, and at risk of damaging marital assets. He said Grant was only trying to protect our home from impulsive financial decisions. Then Maya stood up. She did not raise her voice. She did not perform. She simply handed the judge the timeline. At 2:30 p.m., my forged signature had supposedly been notarized. At 2:30 p.m., I was at work. At 9:48 a.m. The next morning, Grant was at the credit union trying to file the transfer. At 5:46 p.m., he threatened to send false allegations to my employer. Then she handed over the closing sheet. The judge read it for a long time. Grant stopped looking sad. He started looking small. When the judge denied his emergency petition, I did not feel victory. I felt air, like someone had opened a window inside a burning room. She froze the property transfer, invalidated the emergency filing pending investigation, and ordered Grant to have no contact with me except through attorneys. Detective Harris was waiting outside the courtroom. Grant saw her and turned pale. I did not watch what happened next. I had spent enough of my life watching him. The months after that were ugly. Divorce is hard even when you hate the reason. Fraud cases move slowly. Families split into sides. Some people still whispered that I must have known more than I admitted, because people prefer complicated victims to uncomfortable truth. But my mother kept her house. Aunt Teresa kept her duplex. Luke repaid what he could. Megan left Tyler before he could drag her deeper into it. And I kept my job because I told the truth before Grant's lie got there first. The second phone stayed in an evidence bag for a long time. Sometimes I thought about it sitting there, silent and cracked, holding the real version of my marriage. No mistress. No hotel room. No lipstick on a collar. Just signatures. Transfers. Threats. Names of people I loved turned into tools. That was the lesson I learned the hard way. Betrayal is not always romantic. Sometimes it is financial. Sometimes it is legal. Sometimes it is a man smiling across the dinner table while building paperwork that can erase you. I still live outside Nashville, but not in that ranch house. I sold it after the divorce was final. Not because I was running. Because I wanted a place Grant had never measured, studied, or planned around. Now I read every document myself. I keep separate accounts. I ask uncomfortable questions early. And when someone says, "Just trust me," I no longer hear romance. I hear a locked door. And I check who has the key.